So data insights is the section that is going to be the biggest problem on the GMAT. It is the biggest problem for most people who are preparing for the GMAT. It's a new section. It was introduced in 2023. I mean, those questions used to be tested earlier as well in a section called integrated reasoning, but that did not used to contribute towards the actual GMAT score. So nobody cared about it much. But since 2023, data insights is a new section and it definitely contributes towards your score. And it's been making life difficult for people. I mean, in case you're not aware, data insights has 5 question types. You have data sufficiency, which used to be on math earlier. DS was part of quant earlier. Now it's part of data insights. So you have DS, you have tables, you have graphs, you have two-part analysis, and you have multi-source reasoning. Those are the 5 question types that appear on data insights. And on the face of it, all questions will look different to you. That's the feedback you will get from most people. Everything looks difficult. Everything looks random. We have no idea what to do. We struggle for time. We struggle for accuracy. And all of that is true to an extent, to the uninitiated at least. If you haven't done the right prep, and most people haven't done any prep for DI. Trust me on that. I see it all the time. People spend time on quant, they spend time on verbal, but they spend no time doing DI. They assume that, and they've also been told by some so-called experts that you can't do much on DI, which is absolutely not correct. But that's the reason people struggle with DI as much as they do. So what do you want to do as part of your DI prep? First thing, do not treat DI as a quant section. It is not a quant section. And that's the legacy of a lot of test prep companies also, which give you too much quant in their third-party question. In fact, a lot of DI as of now is testing you on verbal. At least 50% is verbal, maybe more, not quant. So it's not a quant section, it's not an extension of the quant section. And don't treat it as something you will do quickly at the end of your prep, which is how most people look at DI right now. They spend all the time on quant and verbal. In the last 2-3 weeks, they will do a few DI questions, that too mostly lousy third-party questions, and then expect to get a great score on a mock. And then when they take the first mock, reality hits them when they get a 75 on DI, a 75 out of 90. 90 is the highest you can get in each section, by the way, quant, verbal, and DI, in case you don't know. So data insights is one of the 3 sections on the test, so give it as much time as you are giving quant and verbal. Absolutely. Do it towards the end, I agree with that. You don't want to do it initially because a lot of the stuff tested on DI is from quant and verbal. So do quant and verbal first. Once you're done the 70% of quant and verbal, then you get started with DI, but give a lot of time to DI. Because it's a new section, so there's limited content available. I mean, that's exactly why I've created the DI Grail. So I'm plugging in my course over here, but do check out the DI Grail in case you want something nice to prepare from. It's an excellent resource to prep for DI. That's all the plugging I'll do. So see, when it comes to DI, it's partly correct to say there is no real concept as such in DI. The concepts are from quant and verbal only, which is why you want to apply what I call classification first thinking on DI. You want to be able to classify questions. See, why does critical reasoning not feel random, let's say? Because the moment you read a question, you are classifying it. Okay, it's an assumption family of question, or it's an inference question, it's a bold-faced question, and you have strategies to approach each of those question types. That doesn't feel random. On DI, you have no such thing. Nobody's taught you that. And that's the first thing I teach, categorization. The moment you see a question on the screen, you should be able to categorize, okay, this falls in this particular category, and you already have a ready-made template in your head as to how to approach that question. That's all part of your DI prep, by the way. And that's where the time goes, right? Because just doing questions will not help on DI. You will end up with the same situation where you will think every question is a new question. That's not the idea. So you need to have an approach in mind first and then practice questions to fine-tune your approach, your strategy. Where will you get that approach from? As I said, that's your conceptual work. Use third-party resources for that. Of course, use the DI Grail if you want. Incidentally, for practice, only use official questions. I mean, I've created the DI Grail. I've given you 0 third-party questions in that. I only use official stuff, and I only encourage people to use official questions, especially for DI. See, one feedback you will see a lot, or hear a lot, or read a lot, which is the questions that I saw on the actual test in DI were very different or much more difficult compared to whatever I was doing in my practice. And when they say that, most of the people are doing third-party stuff in their practice. And there'll be a huge disconnect because they haven't done enough official questions. Most people use a pirated version of the OG, the PDFs. The PDF only contains 2 question types, TPA, two-part analysis, and data sufficiency. The other 3, tables, graphs, and MSR, are not even there in the book. You can only access them online, for which you have to have bought the OG. Unless you buy the OG, you can't get access to those. And you can, of course, find them on GMAT Club, if you know how to search. Not all of them, but some of them. So please only practice official questions for data insights. Most of the third-party questions are poor copies of original questions. They will do a lot more harm than good. Don't bother with them. You want to use the main OG, you want to use the DIOG. Later on, you also want to use the 100 question practice set that the GMAT sells on its website, right? So use the main OGs when you're doing the conceptual work in data insights. Use the DIOG to create your section test for the timing stage. And then the 100 questions you can use much later when you're doing your full length test and you need some more practice, then use those 100 questions that sell for $30, I think, on the GMAT website. And follow the 3-stage plan that I have discussed earlier. I hope you've seen that video. If you haven't, please go and watch that first. The 3-step plan is the broad plan. Quant, verbal and DI come under that. So in DI also, you want to stick to those 3 stages. Stage 1, accuracy stage. Stage 2, timing stage. Stage 3 is your full length testing, of course. And maintain the error log. Very, very important. All the stuff I've said earlier in that main video. Maintain the error log, and in DI specifically, use the error log to create what I call your DI profile, which is nothing but question types you're good at, question types you're weak at, question types you spend too much time on, because you will use this knowledge to create your strategy for the DI section in terms of what to attempt, what to guess on, how much time to spend on each question, right? So error log is very, very important, and the analysis of that. Okay, so that's how you want to go about your DI prep. I'll give you some more strategy-based advice. First thing, DI is actually the section most relevant to business schools. That's what you'll be doing in all your case studies and discussion in the classroom. So it's a very, very important section that way. And it is also the section that is testing decision making the most. I mean, overall, the GMAT itself is a test of decision making, as I keep saying, but the data insights section among the 3, quant, verbal and DI is testing your decision making the most in terms of what to attempt, what not to attempt, how to attempt, all of that. What you need to learn is how to control the DI section. You need to learn how to control the entire test, but especially the DI section. And you also need to develop a lot of mental stamina for data insights, because most people do DI at the end of the test, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. But you need some mental stamina to be able to do DI after quant and verbal, which comes with practice, but focused practice. So you start with taking DI sections, then later on you do DI after verbal back to back to put more pressure on yourself. You do DI practice in some noisy environment at a coffee shop, so it puts more pressure on you. All of that is the strategic work that you need to do. I'll end by speaking a little about the scoring on the DI section. It's the most forgiving, if you ask me, of the 3 sections. It's the most forgiving. Like, you can make mistakes in DI, still end up with a good score, especially towards the end of the section. So if you make mistakes in questions 15 to 20, typically they don't damage your score much. Even if you look at the percentiles, so as I told you, the sectional scores are between 60 and 90. 60 is basically a 0, 90 is the highest you can get. So if you've taken the test and I ask you, give me the breakup of your scores, I want to know how much you scored out of 90 in quant, verbal and DI. And let's say you get an 80 in each of them. So it is not the same. So while it looks like the same score, it is not the same. An 80 in quant is around 63rd, 64th percentile. An 80 in verbal is even lower, around 56th percentile. 80 on DI is around the 83rd percentile. What does that mean? That means it is much more difficult to score on DI than to score on quant and verbal. So bottom line, give a lot of importance to DI. Don't treat it like a stepchild. It is not random. It will look random, but it is not random. And check out the DI Grail if you want to learn all the stuff I've discussed in this video. Cheers, everyone.